And so he says, when the mind has settled, we're established in our essential nature, which is unbounded consciousness. So, again, Patanjali is just all about getting you to your true nature. Skip the rest. Let's get down to the core. What are you? You know. And so he goes on to say that our essential nature is usually overshadowed by the activity of the mind. That's why we're not completely merged and united with God and just in bliss all the time, because we have all these other sheaths and all these other overshadowings that affect us and influence our life. And he says there's, going on to verse 5 now, there are 5 types of mental activity. They may or may not cause suffering. These 5 are as follows. I'm going to write them up here. Y'all can jot them down. I use slightly different words than him. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. There's different translations, and so 5 types. May not cause suffering. They have the potential to cause pain, be impure and be restrictive, or to not cause pain, be pure, and not restrict our powers of perception. Okay? So understanding, the first one, is correct knowledge based on direct perception, inference, or the reliable testimony of others. Understanding is correct knowledge based on direct perception, meaning you have a realization. Inference, okay, meaning deep contemplation. Or the reliable testimony of others. Who is he talking about there? Who are these others that have this reliable testimony? Sages, saints, gurus, enlightened masters. Okay? So, again, you see a few different paths emerging from that one verse, don't you? You can attain understanding from your own direct perception. That's possible. You can attain understanding through inference, or what other people call deep contemplation. Thinking long and hard about matters and coming to your own conclusions. Or you can have a guru.
What was the first one you said? Inference?
Well, so direct perception.
Direct perception.
So that's going to be realizations.
Gotcha.
Your own, you're meditating and you just, for no reason, just the grace of God, you suddenly understand.
Right.
I get it. Nothing happened. You didn't do anything. You you had a realization.
Sure.
The second one, inference, that's research, study, studying scriptures like what we're doing now. This is inference. This is deep contemplation. Studying scriptures, reading. Okay? Book learning. Academic. And the other one is reliable testimony of others, a guru. To have a guru. And just to sort of devote or have faith that this person is enlightened and that they know what they're talking about. And take their word for it, basically. Okay? And there's any combination of those 3.
How do you know someone is enlightened?
That's a good question.
I don't know the answer to that. It's different for everyone.
Man.
I can only speak from my own experience, having been in the company of supposed, people that were supposedly enlightened people. And I can just tell you that, like, there's a part of me that just knows. And it's not in here. It has nothing to do with, like, anything I think about. It's just in here. It's something that resonates, and I just have this it's a knowing that this individual is sort of a personification of the qualities of, divinity. They still have a personality. They're still a human being.
Right.
But they just possess the qualities that I typically associate with the divine.
And do they express for a particular call themselves enlightenment, or said enlightenment is not.
Very rarely would a master ever refer to themselves as being enlightened. You know, this is a label that's put upon them by their followers. They don't walk around saying, you know, they don't have a shirt on that says, I'm enlightened.
Somebody
You
says
know, so
that,
it's
they
just
follow.
like their followers put that label on them.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like they're, because that would be completely antithetical. That would be completely against the idea of
No,
being
I
enlightened. You
understand,
know.
but
The second one, which I call illusion, he calls misunderstanding. Illusions are inaccurate perceptions. You see something, you perceive something, but then your perception of it is not accurate. It's not what it really is. You are seeing it through your sunglasses. You're seeing things through your filter, not the way it actually is, okay? So, an illusion is an inaccurate or incomplete perception of what is observed. Let's see. The primary obstacle to self-realization or enlightenment is a flawed sense of self-identity. The primary obstacle to enlightenment is a flawed sense of self-identity. You believe you're something you're not. That's an illusion. When this error is corrected, a truth seeker's awareness is immediately restored to its pure wholeness. The ultimate aim of right spiritual practice is to see through and transcend the illusion, the illusional sense of self. The ultimate aim of right spiritual practice is to see through and transcend the illusional sense of self. Okay? So illusions. Everybody clear on what an illusion is? The next one is delusion. Okay, what he calls imagination. I prefer the term delusion. A delusion is an erroneous mental concept. Hallucinations and fantasies are entirely subjective perceptions not based on anything that exists. Erroneous ideas and beliefs cloud and distort awareness, interfere with rational thinking, obstruct endeavors to know what is true, and may compel unwise or erratic behaviors. Hallucinations are mind or brain-produced phenomena which may manifest as mental or audible voices that seem to be real, visions, or other distortions of perception. Fantasies may occur when attention and imagination are not controlled. A truth seeker should avoid delusions, hallucinations, and fantasies by cultivating psychological health, being willing to confront and discern what is true, adhering to a regimen of meaningful activity balanced by interludes of rest and wholesome recreation, and nurturing our spiritual awareness. It's the mental activity that has as its content the sense of nothingness. Okay? So sleep. The powers of cognition are usually restricted when we sleep to allow the body to be refreshed and the mind to organize information that has been newly acquired. As we become more spiritually aware, we can sleep superconsciously instead of being identified with subconscious or unconscious states. So believe it or not, when you raise your spiritual vibration, your sleep becomes different. Your dreams become different. You don't dream about sort of the mundane things that you used to dream about. You can actually participate in your dreams. You can be awake while you're asleep, in other words. So you can actually, you are you in your dreams. It's not uncontrolled things just happening to you. You control what's going on. Some people call this astral...
lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming. Some people attribute it to astral projecting, where your astral or energetic body goes outside of your... It's always outside of your physical body, but anyway, and goes somewhere else, and comes back, and... But anyway, you can have control over your dreaming in your sleep state, so that you're actually awake while you're asleep, okay?
But still getting the restorative nature of sleep.
And the more you meditate, and the more you do pranayamas and yoga and these deep, restful activities, the less sleep you need.
Yes.
We know, I know someone who allegedly does not sleep.
Really?
And I know another meditation master who only sleeps about 4 hours a night, and has for 60 years. You know?
Wow.
If you think about it, does the soul sleep? Does the soul no sleep? Does the spirit sleep?
Does the bliss body sleep?
Does energy sleep? I mean, if you think about it, our physical being sleeps. And you gotta ask yourself, why do we sleep? Really think about that. Why do we sleep? For restoration, lots of reasons, but why do we sleep? Why are we created on this planet, these beings, and we sleep?
Verse 11, and memory is the returning of the mind, the returning to the mind of past experience. Memories are mental impressions of prior perceptions. All perceptions leave impressions in the mind that can be elicited, brought forth into conscious awareness, and may be influential even when we are not consciously aware of them. Influential memories that are accumulated over a period of time comprise a karmic, potentially causative condition. If allowed to be influential, their effects may be constructive and life-enhancing or restrictive and troublesome. If their effects are constructive and life-enhancing in accord with our major purposes, they can be allowed to be influential. How to definitely eliminate the causes of troublesome subconscious influences is described in the following sutra. Verse 12. These 5 types of mental activity are settled through the practice of yoga and the freedom it bestows. So the trouble influences of mental impression should be restrained, weakened, and removed by meditation practice and dispassionate non-attachment. Verse 13. The practice of yoga is the commitment to become established in the state of freedom. The practice of yoga is the commitment to become established in the state of freedom. So because of our innate inclination to be attentive to what is perceived, the easiest way to avoid being unduly influenced by troubled mental modifications is to concentrate on what is of greater value, to meditatively contemplate the pure conscious essence of our being. Okay? 14. The practice of yoga will be firmly rooted when it is maintained consistently and with dedication over a long period. That's important. I have so many people that come to my classes, to yoga class. They take 1 or 2 yoga classes, and they say, you know what, I'm not deriving any benefit from this. This just isn't for me. And sometimes I have to tell them, I've been doing yoga off and on for 10 years, and I'm still continually growing, learning new things, getting better, discovering new things about myself and my practice, and I'm still nowhere near where I'd like to be. That's 10 years. And you do notice the people that have been meditating for a very long time, it's obvious. When you're in their presence and you're around them enough, when they've been meditating for 20, 30, 40 years, you just know, again, you can just kind of feel they have a vibration. So this takes a long time. It's a commitment. It's not, even this teacher training, it's 3 months long. You know, if you do your pranayamas and meditate every day, twice a day like we're asking y'all to do, you're going to see tremendous improvements in all facets of your life. But again, that's just 3 months, and you're not going to be enlightened in 3 months. Well, maybe you will, I don't know. But this takes a long time. It's a practice. It's a process. Nazut, you say that a lot, right? It's a practice.
Of course. It's a practice, process, commitment. I get a way of life.
It's a way of life.
A lifestyle.
Lifestyle.
What Chris mentioned about people coming to class, 1 or 2 classes, and they go, yes, it does happen. And also I get people who say, who come to my class and say, I took yoga years ago, and I loved it so much, and I just stopped. And then they're coming back to it, and then want the same benefits they had 20 years ago. So I get a lot of this. So just think about where they would have been if they would have kept going from 20 years ago to keep practicing. You know, if they kept going, they wouldn't have. There'd be so many. I mean, so different. You know, and they wouldn't. You know, they would just. You know, so it's a lifestyle. I mean, people of all ages, all walks of life, all cultures throughout the board. I'm talking about everybody from everywhere I've met. You know, I'm from New York as well. I've met everyone from all over the world, and people. I'm telling you, there's something in the human spirit that then everyone that says if they commit, if commitment, if whatever they want to, their passion in their life, whatever they want to do, if they commit to something, they can attain it. You know, they can achieve whatever they're looking for. So practice, commitment is key. So you got to commit, you got to practice. So
and the problem is with our modern culture, everything's so it's instant gratification.
Right.
And so they go to one yoga class and meditate one time for 10 minutes, and I think they're gonna blast out of their crash chakra and merge with Christ.
Right.
And you have to tell them, like, look, you meditated for 5 minutes. That's fantastic, but there's people that have been meditating for 40 years every day and they're still not enlightened.
Right.
So why did you think you were going to be enlightened in 5 minutes? So because they're so used to playing video games and going through the fast food line and everything's just done for you immediately right away, they think there's some magic pill that they can just take and be enlightened,
Well, to kind of, we are living now. There are some philosophies out there that are saying that things are becoming faster in terms of energy. It's moving faster nowadays. We're shifting or whatever. Well, can you feel it? Can you feel? It's really up to the individual to feel. It's up to you can feel. I know you can, but it's up to the individual to really feel it. Because some people are maybe still moving at a slower pace. Some people are moving fast. It's all just finding that right energy pace. And things are moving faster, yet still staying that ground, having that commitment, that foundation. That's important. So that's what yoga is about, is having that center. Root. Yes, what we did today. Have that root.
I learned my lesson.
Yeah. So you can do many people do many things now, very, all over the place. But finding that root and foundation is very important. Then you can be in a fast-paced environment or, have fast things going on. But if you have that root and understand that there's commitment to that root, commitment to that center, you can, succeed from there. So, does it make sense? Clear, everybody?
Verse 14, the practice of yoga will be firmly rooted when it is maintained consistently and with dedication over a long period.
Yes.
That was key.
That's that. Dedication.
What's your name?
Commitment. Verse 15, freedom, sometimes called liberation, is that triumphant state of consciousness that is beyond the influence of desire. The mind ceases to thirst for anything it has seen or heard of, even what is promised in the scriptures. Even the desire for heaven fades.
One realizes they're already
there. There's nowhere to go. Nothing to do.
This is great.
Let's go home.
We're done.
You got it.
Which one?
15. So the mind ceases to thirst for anything it has seen or heard of, even what is promised in the scriptures. And what is promised in the scriptures is enlightenment, bliss. So you can get to a point where even the desire for that just fades away because you realize you already have it. So it's liberation is, enlightenment is essentially a desireless state. Buddhism focuses on that as its primary aspect. Desires. Getting rid of all desires. Now does that mean, here we go again, does that mean you have to be a renunciate and live in a cave? It's easier in some ways, but no, you can live in the world and play your role in it and still be relatively desireless. Now does that mean you know, I no longer want to have a house, I no longer want to have a car, or a job, or, no. You have to have those things. It's not like, you know,
To play your role.
to play your role. Again, we go back to verse, where did he say? Oh, and here he was saying that, in verse 8, they were talking about illusions. Misunderstandings of illusion that stems from false impression of reality. The ultimate aim of right spiritual practice is to see through and transcend the illusional sense of self. The primary obstacle to enlightenment is a flawed sense of self-identity. Believing you are something that you're not. Okay? I am this body, I am this job, I am my career, I am my DNA, I am my family, I am... No, you're not. It's a role. Do you think that when a Broadway actor, they go up on stage, they play their role, do you think when they come off stage and they go backstage, they're still talking like they were and still playing? No. They understand, that was my role. Now I'm me. We do the same. We go out into the world, we play our little role. We do our little act, our little song and dance. Okay? We come back to ourselves and we realize, oh, well that's not really what I am or who I am. It's this temporary, impermanent, fleeting little role I have to play that God wanted me to do something with. But that's not what I am. So if you identify with that role, you're going to suffer immeasurably. When you learn to de-identify from that role and detach from it and view it from above, like what you said yesterday about the bird, I loved that, you know. You were imagining yourself as a bird. Why? Because you are up here, and you look down and observe, witness, right, silently, everything else going on. So that's the idea. You become that witness, your true nature, what you really are, and you learn to witness the role, detach from the role. That's all. That's really the key. You can do all the yoga in the world, you can do all the meditation in the world, you can do all the pranayama in the world. If you're not willing to detach from your role, nothing will happen. You will not see much growth. You might see a little growth physically, of course. Physically, even energetically, maybe a little mentally, but spiritually, until you're ready to detach completely from your role, you're not really going to accomplish what you want to accomplish spiritually, you know. So it's it's not a coldness toward the role. It's not a. I used to think it was. I used to think it was. I don't give a crap about that dude. No, it's not that. It's actually. It might be at first, but eventually it's a warm, compassionate embrace of that person, saying, well, that's Chris. You know, there goes Chris again, doing his thing. But you know, you eventually like learn to love Chris. You know, and he is what he is, and that's fine. But it's not. I'm not attached to this character because I know when the body dies, the character dies with it. So why become attached to something that's going to perish? So it's like moving from that identity with our little self, lower S self, moving toward that identity with our capital S self, and everything in between. It's a process, it's a practice. The yoga helps, the meditation helps, the pranayama helps, but ultimately what helps even more than that is this process of just de-identifying with the role.
So if the whole thing is about finding who I am, or who we are, the truth is that what we are, from what you're saying, is this being that is not this identity that has the capability of observe and has a power or a something, a ability, or to go through and perform whatever he wants. Is that the answer of who I am? So we are all the same, just with different formula.
We're all exactly, at our core, we're all exactly the same.
Yeah.
That was well put.
Yes.
Yeah, that was good.
Well put. I used the example yesterday of a drop of water
Yeah,
versus the ocean. The drop of water in the ocean is the same. They're the same exact thing.
Right.
Molecularly, whatever. They're exactly the same. one is vast and encompasses everything. One is just individualized. So if you want to think
It
of
has
God,
different formula. It's not the same.
Texture.
My soul is not the same that yours.
yes, it is.
Even
Exactly.
that we have composed with some that make us together, but I have some abilities or some perceptions that maybe you don't.
But that's not your soul. Your soul is exactly like my soul. It's exactly like his soul, his soul, his. They're
So
the
we're
same
not
exact.
individuals?
We are. On a more gross level. So on our very most subtle level, at your very core, we're all exactly the same. Exactly.
We're
But
coming
we
from
have
the
these 5
same
sheets.
source.
We have 5 coverings, which is what I talked about yesterday. So these 5 coverings are what color that soul. They're what give us our
It's the
individuality.
identity, but it's not
It's identity.
what we are.
But it's not what we are. So at your very core, you're infinite. Infinity has no characteristics. It's not, you can't label it, you can't put a word on it or describe it. It's just, it is what it is. It's like the substratum, the base layer from which everything else manifests. So at our very core, we're all exactly the same, but we all have different coverings over that. We're wearing different clothes. Costumes, different clothes.
And you're talking about getting down to such a deep level that most of us, well, I'll speak for myself, I have not experienced yet. I mean, that very, very essential divinity.
That's right, and that's why they
Which-
call it oneness consciousness. Because when you experience samadhi, you understand that oneness. You understand that there's no difference between me and you at our core. There's no difference between me and the wall at my core. There's no difference between me and the floor. It's all comes from the same pure, what he calls unbounded consciousness. Some people call it infinite consciousness. Some people call it God. Whatever you want to call it. Some people call it the ocean, and we're the little individualized drops of water that through various processes we become involved with this world and take on different roles. We take on a different body each time. We take on, and this goes into beliefs in reincarnation and stuff and enlightenment. And again, I don't really want to go there because not everybody believes in reincarnation, and not everybody even believes in enlightenment. You don't have to believe in enlightenment to practice yoga. There's tons of people that practice yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong and even meditate. They don't believe in enlightenment at all. They don't believe in reincarnation. They meditate and they do yoga because it makes them feel good and they relax, and that's cool, good, But we're studying, the real scriptures, the actual yoga. And so, with that said, it's just important for us to have like a foundational understanding of where yoga comes from, where all the philosophy comes from, and things like that, So I'm not asking you to believe in reincarnation. I'm not asking you to believe anything I'm saying. You may walk away here today going, that Chris, man, I don't know what the hell that
He's
guy
just
was
out
talking
there,
about.
yeah.
He needs to come back down to earth. We're all the same. What? So it's like, you don't have to even believe that, because you're gonna take whatever you want to take. And people, when they read this, guess what? They have their own interpretations and their own, right, commentaries. And they may read a verse in here, and they may come up with something totally different than what I come up with when I read a verse in here. And who's to say they're right and I'm wrong, or I'm right and they're wrong? It's like, some people are colorblind, and when they look at something, I see red and they see green. So who's to say red is actually there, or maybe green's actually there? So it's like, you'll come to your own conclusions based on your own traditions, your beliefs, your spirituality, and your practice and your process. But, just from Patanjali says that at our core we're all the same. So according to Patanjali and yoga philosophy, at your core, the Atman, the Brahma, whatever you want to call it, the soul, they're all the same, because it's infinite, right? There's no qualities, characteristics, or anything attributed to it, so it has to be the same. And then we get individualized, and we take on bodies and personalities and minds and blah, blah, blah. and we have to function in this world. So the idea is that you meditate, you get in touch with the divine, the higher reality, and then you take that and then you animate it through your own personality, through your own individuality, and that's why we have personalities. That's why we have individuality. Because we're all going to express and manifest the divine in different ways that appeal to different people, It's like some people like Southern Baptist churches, some people like Catholic churches, some people like Hinduism, some people like Buddhism. Well, gosh, if we didn't have all these different personalities for God to animate through, none of these different types of people would ever be reached if it was only just one thing, So I think the diversity that comes from being individualized actually is more conducive to, the evolution of consciousness as a whole. It's like in biology, there's a concept called biodiversity.
Right.
And the more biodiverse an ecosystem is, the healthier it is, and actually the more evolved it can
Say
become.
that again. Say it again.
Biodiversity. That means the more biodiverse an ecosystem is, the more species it has living in it.
Right. So it can,
Wow.
it can survive better
Yes.
in its own environment, if that makes sense.
Well, that shows us how disastrous polarity is.
Yeah, because people aren't accepting and tolerating that diversity. So it's like, the more diverse, I think, the spiritual landscape is, I think, probably the more chance it has for survival. And the more conducive it is to evolution. The evolution of consciousness, of the universe as a whole.
You just have to get clear.
And
Make
truth.
sure you're clear in your question.
Did that answer your question?
You have a question? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That was,
You just need to keep elevating to get to a point where religions don't fight wars against each other.
Yeah, that's right. It's like, you can believe different things, but at least stick to your beliefs.
Right, actually live it.
yeah.
And,
Don't.
Get along
you
with
say
it.
like, you shouldn't murder, then don't do it,
Right, pretty simple.
Last verse, 16. So we talked about freedom, what he's calling freedom. And then in 16 he talks about supreme freedom, which is complete liberation. Supreme freedom is that complete liberation from the world of change that comes of knowing the unbounded self with a capital S. So again, all of this physical, all these sheaths change. We age, we change, our bodies change, we die. Our personalities change over our lives. We're not like we were 10 years ago. We're probably totally different than we were. So all these things change. You're not your personality because it changes. You're not your body because it changes. You're not your thoughts because they change.
That's a good way of explaining it.
The only thing that doesn't change is what?
Your soul.
Your soul. Therefore, all souls are the same because none of them ever change.
And Mark, you mentioned gifts. You said something about gifts.
I wanted to touch. Yeah, go
Right.
ahead.
So that's actually not the soul. Actually, the soul already has all these gifts. It's already so that one soul that's everybody, everyone already has. Does it make sense?
Yes.
In this concept, the yogic concept.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is that?
Yeah, and the gifts, it's like people will say, my spiritual gifts. Well, and we'll talk about this. The Sutras goes into all the powers, psychic abilities, and spiritual powers and things that you can
When
attain.
you say all of that, it's available for anyone.
Right.
Anyone.
Right.
And actually, the
Maybe
fully.
one develop the
Right.
artist, piano, whatever, and I do believe in reincarnation, and so you can come and
Sure.
play the piano down
Yes.
10 lives.
That's right.
Right.
But it's because this person pick up from the abilities that we all have,
Right.
that
Pick
when
and
he
choose.
developed in his lives, that.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe for the past 10 lifetimes, he's been playing piano, and then he's born, And at the age of 5, he can play all these concertos, and people say, "Oh, he's just a genius. He's an idiot savant." No, he's been learning piano for 1,000 years,
That's what I thought.
actually.
So I thought it was an individual being that developed that as part of the source of the what I didn't know, or it's a new concept, is that we all have all available, and we just, it's not something that each one has.
And they say that the enlightened masters have all the powers at their disposal. And I've seen a little bit of this for myself firsthand, and I can speak on this, and it's true. You know, like the truly enlightened beings do have these powers available, but they hardly ever use them.
Right.
And it's like, you know, so I think the more enlightened you become, the more you raise your vibration, the more you have access to these different powers. They call them siddhis. S-I-D-D-H-I? Something like that. And they're the powers that you gain through spiritual practice. And so they're all latent within us. We have all this potential within us. It's just a matter of getting rid of, you know, cutting through all the crap so that we can uncover this divinity that's within us and let it manifest out into the world. You know what I'm saying? But, and thank you for bringing up that point about gifts, because I always wondered about that. I'm like, if all souls are the same, then how come some souls seem to have these spiritual gifts and others not?
My point. That was what I was like,
That's one of those mysteries, you know. But I think that I think Azut cleared it up for me. You know, it's like we all have all of them latent within us. It's just a matter of uncovering them one at a time, maybe, and sometimes they come all at once.
Right. Or we are born, we choose. Because before we're born, we choose our path, we choose our gift, we choose everything before we're born. In the concept, the spiritual concept. But we choose. Some people just, they choose it, they're here to be psychic, they're going to be psychic. So they're just like, they see vision, they see all these things. That's who they are. Some people, they play piano. Oh, they just know piano. They access that.
All of us decide?
Well,
choose is each person chooses.
There's another way of explaining it.
I like the word is attracted to.
Or attracted to,
choosing, because choosing implies to me like,
we can say, attraction,
maybe you do choose.
Well,
I have no idea.
That's why I said this was
because I don't remember when I said that.
But that's just the
Or
spiritual
before
concept.
you were born. Yeah.
Right. You know, if you're for reincarnation,
My kid tell me all the time, I choose you. I mean, he's very, and he said it with all the, I choose you as a mom.
Yeah, sure.
So I believe what they say.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm in love now. And then he asked me for some candy. No.
That's the way to do it.
And so he says, when the mind has settled, we're established in our essential nature, which is unbounded consciousness. So, again, Patanjali is just all about getting you to your true nature. Skip the rest. Let's get down to the core. What are you? You know. And so he goes on to say that our essential nature is usually overshadowed by the activity of the mind. That's why we're not completely merged and united with God and just in bliss all the time, because we have all these other sheaths and all these other overshadowings that affect us and influence our life. And he says going on to verse 5 now, there are 5 types of mental activity. They may or may not cause suffering. These 5 are as follows. I'm going to write them up here. Y'all can jot them down. I use slightly different words than him. And I'll tell you why in just a minute. There's different translations, and so 5 types. May not cause suffering. They have the potential to cause pain, be impure and be restrictive, or to not cause pain, be pure, and not restrict our... let's see. The primary obstacle to self-realization or enlightenment is a flawed sense of self-identity. The primary obstacle to enlightenment is a flawed sense of self-identity. You believe you're something you're not. That's an illusion. When this error is corrected, a truth seeker's awareness is immediately restored to its pure wholeness. The ultimate aim of right spiritual practice is to see through and transcend the illusion, the illusional sense of self. The ultimate aim of right spiritual practice is to see through and transcend the illusional sense of self. Okay? So illusions. Everybody clear on what an illusion is? The next one is delusion. Okay, what he calls imagination. I prefer the term delusion. A delusion is an erroneous mental concept. Hallucinations and fantasies are entirely subjective perceptions not based on anything that exists. Erroneous ideas and beliefs cloud and distort awareness, interfere with rational thinking, obstruct endeavors to know what is true, and may compel unwise or erratic behaviors. Hallucinations are mind or brain-produced phenomena. You just, for no reason, just the grace of God, you suddenly understand.
Right.
I get it. Nothing happened. You didn't do anything. You had a realization.
Sure.
The second one, inference. That's research, study. Studying scriptures like what we're doing now. This is inference. This is deep contemplation. Studying scriptures, reading. Okay, book learning, academic. And the other one is reliable testimony of others, a guru. To have a guru, and just to sort of devote or have faith that this person is enlightened and that they know what they're talking about. And take their word for it, basically. Okay? And there's any combination of those three.
How do you know someone is enlightened?
That's a good question.
I don't know the answer to that. It's different for everyone.
Man.
I can only speak from my own experience, having been in the company of people that were supposedly enlightened people. And I can just tell you that, like, there's a part of me that just knows. And it's not in here. It has nothing to do with, like, anything I think about. It's just in here. It's something that resonates, and I just have this it's a knowing that this individual is sort of a personification of the qualities of, divinity. They still have a personality. They're still a human being. But they just possess the qualities that I typically associate with the divine.
And did they express for a particular call themselves enlightenment, or they don't call themselves enlightenment?
Very rarely would a master ever refer to themselves as being enlightened. This is a label that's put upon them by their followers. They don't walk around saying, they don't have a shirt on that says, I'm enlightened.
Somebody says
So
that,
it's just like their followers put that label on them.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's not like they're... Because that would be completely antithetical. That would be completely against the idea of being enlightened. The second one, which I call illusion, he calls misunderstanding. Illusions are inaccurate perceptions. You see something, you perceive something, but then your perception of it is not accurate. It's not what it really is. You are seeing it through your sunglasses. You're seeing things through your filter, not the way it actually is, okay? So, an illusion is an inaccurate or incomplete perception of what is observed. It powers of perception. Okay? So, understanding, the first one, is correct knowledge based on direct perception, inference, or the reliable testimony of others. Understanding is correct knowledge based on direct perception, meaning you have a realization. Inference, okay, meaning deep contemplation. Or the reliable testimony of others. Who is he talking about there? Who are these others that have this reliable testimony? Sages, saints, gurus, and
Enlightened.
light masters. Okay? So, again, you see a few different paths emerging from that one verse, don't you? You can attain understanding from your own direct perception. That's possible. You can attain understanding through inference, or what other people call deep contemplation, thinking long and hard about matters and coming to your own conclusions. Or you can have a guru.
What was the first one you said? Inference?
Well, so direct perception.
The direct
So
perception.
that's going to be realizations. Your
Gotcha.
own, you're meditating